something is wrong. You are floating on open water. No land behind you. No land ahead of you. No map in your hands. No compass, no engine, no radio. Just the ocean, stretching in every direction further than your eyes can reach. Most people today would freeze. Most people would give up. But 65,000 years ago, your ancestors did exactly this. They stood at the edge of the water. They looked out at something that had no end, and they sailed into it anyway. No GPS, no satellite, no modern boat. Some of them had rafts made from logs tied together with plant fibers. That was it. And they crossed. How?
That question has puzzled scientists, archaeologists, and historians for decades. Because the ocean is not just water. The ocean is chaos, unpredictable waves, shifting currents, sudden storms, no landmarks. It is the most dangerous environment on the planet for a human with nothing. And yet, ancient humans did not just cross it once. They crossed it hundreds of times. They crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean. They reached islands no modern satellite had even mapped. They did it intentionally. They did it repeatedly. They did it with accuracy that still shocks researchers today. So what did they know that we forgot? The first ocean crossing we have solid evidence for happened around 65,000 years ago. A group of early humans crossed from Southeast Asia to Australia. No written language, no metal tools, no modern technology. This was not an accident. This was not a lucky drift on a log. The water between Southeast Asia and Australia is called the Wallace Line. Even at its narrowest point during the Ice Age, when sea levels were much lower, it was still at least 60 miles of open ocean. You could not see land on the other side. You could not swim it. You had to build something and trust it.
And they did. Researcher James O'Connell and his team found evidence in Australia dating back 65,000 years. Human tools, human fire pits, human presence. Far beyond what any accidental crossing could explain. These people planned. What the real story of open ocean navigation gets even more extraordinary as you move into the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean is the largest body of water on Earth. It covers more than 165 million square kilometers. It holds more than half of all the water on the planet's surface, and ancient Polynesians crossed it. Not just once, thousands of times, from island to island, across distances that stretch from one end of a continent to the other. They settled Hawaii. They settled Easter Island. They settled New Zealand.
How did they navigate? They had a system, a complete invisible map built entirely from nature. The first tool was the stars. Every star rises and sets at a fixed point on the horizon. Not exactly east and west. Each star has its own specific rising point, its own specific setting point. Ancient Polynesian navigators memorized hundreds of them, not from books, not from charts, from memory. Passed down through generations of oral teaching, traditional Polynesian navigators built a mental map of the entire sky known as a star compass, allowing them to look up at any point of the night in the middle of the ocean and know exactly where they were. Astronomer David Lewis spent years sailing with these navigators in the 1960s and 70s, documenting how they could sail hundreds of miles with extraordinary precision using just stars, memory, and thousands of years of inherited skill. However, because stars only work at night and disappear behind clouds, the ocean itself became the map when the sky went dark. The Pacific is crisscrossed with deep water swells, long, rolling waves created by distant winds and storms that travel in consistent directions for thousands of miles. And an experienced navigator could feel the angle and rhythm of these swells through the hull of the canoe, or by lying flat on the floor. Researcher Ben Finney, who helped build a replica Polynesian voyaging canoe called Hokulea and sailed it across the Pacific in 1976 without modern instruments, described this swell reading as a physical knowledge, where the body learns the ocean by feeling rather than thinking, providing a reliable heading even when the sky was hidden. Furthermore, because an island interrupts, bends, and reflects deep water swell patterns to create a zone of disturbed water, a skilled navigator could sense land beyond the visible horizon from 30 to 50 miles away just by detecting subtle changes in wave behavior. Navigators also relied on living indicators, watching the flight patterns of specific seabirds like the frigate bird, booby, and golden plover, which do not travel far from land and fly out to sea to feed in the morning and back to land to roost in the evening. Additionally, they scanned the horizon for clouds, because the heat of land causes clouds to form and sit perfectly still directly above islands, even when the surrounding sky is clear, revealing the land beneath that stillness, followed finally by the distinct smell of the island itself.
Coconut trees, vegetation, soil baking in the sun. Land has a smell that carries far out to sea.
Ancient navigators knew it. They could detect an island downwind before they could ever see it. Eyes, ears, nose, touch, memory. Every sense was turned into a navigation tool. The ocean was not a barrier to them, it was a road. But here's what makes this even more extraordinary. They were not just surviving, they were exploring intentionally. The canoes they used, called double-hulled voyaging canoes, were engineering marvels of their time. Carved from single massive trees, lashed together with plant fiber cordage so tight the hull barely flexed, fitted with woven pandanus leaf sails that caught wind from nearly any direction, stable enough to survive open ocean swells that would terrify a modern sailor, fast enough to cover 100 miles or more in a single day with good wind. They carried supplies, fresh water sealed in gourds, dried fish and breadfruit that would last weeks, living plants, seeds, animals, everything needed to build a settlement from nothing on the other side. These were not desperate escapes. These were organized expeditions, planned, provisioned, executed by people with no writing, no metal, no modern technology of any kind. And they did something else that almost nobody talks about. They came back. If you discover an island 2,000 miles from home and you want others to follow, you have to navigate back to where you came from, and then lead a second expedition to where you found. Round trip across open ocean, twice, without instruments, without losing the way. Anthropologist Patrick Kirch called this one of the greatest feats of human achievement in the prehistoric world. Not the pyramids, not the great stone monuments, regular humans, in wooden canoes, crossing the largest ocean on Earth, reaching the most isolated islands in the world, doing it on purpose, doing it repeatedly, doing it perfectly. So next time you look at a map and see the Pacific Ocean, that massive blue emptiness, remember what it actually was to them. It was not empty. It was full of information, full of direction, full of roads only they could read. They had no map. They had no boat like you were imagining. But they had something most people today have completely lost. They understood the world deeply enough to cross it. The ocean did not stop ancient humans. The ocean was how they found the world.